I came home from a trip and found my clothes thrown on the lawn with a note taped to the door that said, "Mom, my in-laws are moving in here now. Find somewhere else to stay." My own son threw me out on the street like I was trash, but he didn't know I had a secret I'd been keeping for 3 years. And when he found out, he went pale. But it was already too late. But before we continue, make sure you're subscribed to the channel and write in the comments, where are you watching this video from? We love to know how far our stories are reaching. My name is Eleanor Vance, and I am 64 years old. I never imagined that one day I would be here telling this story. But I need to talk. I need to get out everything that happened to me. Maybe you who are listening have already gone through something similar or know someone who has. And if so, know that you are not alone. It was a Tuesday in March when my life was turned upside down. I had gone to visit my cousin Joan in Denver. She was recovering from knee surgery and needed help. I stayed there for 10 days, taking care of her, cooking, organizing the house. It was good to be with her, to talk, to remember the old days. I felt useful again, you know, that feeling that you still serve a purpose. When I got back to Phoenix, it was almost 5 o'clock in the evening. The bus left me at the terminal, and I took another one to my neighborhood. I walked the 2 remaining blocks with my heavy suitcase, tired but happy to be coming home. My home. The place where I raised my son Ryan alone after my husband died. The house where I thought I was going to grow old in peace. When I turned the corner of my street, I saw something strange. There were some bags by the gate. I thought it was trash from a neighbor, one of those rude people who just dumped their things anywhere. But when I got closer, my heart froze. It was my stuff. My clothes were piled inside grocery bags. My shoes were thrown in a wet cardboard box. My books, the ones I read every night before sleeping, were in a broken bag. I even saw my favorite pillow, the feather one that belonged to my late husband Arthur, tossed on top of everything as if it were worthless. My hands started to shake. I dropped my suitcase right there on the sidewalk and went to the gate. That's when I saw the paper. A handwritten note in Ryan's handwriting. I recognized it instantly. It was the same handwriting I taught him when he was 6 years old. "Mom, I'm sorry to do this, but Megan's parents lost their house. They're going to live here now. You'll have to find somewhere else to stay. We'll talk later." I read it 3 times, 4, 5. I couldn't believe it. My son, the child I carried in my womb for 9 months, who I raised alone after his father died, who I supported by selling homemade cakes in the street, that same son was kicking me out of my own house. I looked at the door. It had a new lock, shiny, all chrome, as if it were mocking me. I tried to use my key, but it wouldn't go in. They had changed the lock. It wasn't a mistake. It wasn't a misunderstanding. It was a plan. My own son had planned to throw me out on the street. I felt my legs give way. I leaned against the wall so I wouldn't fall. The neighbor across the street, Mrs. Davis, was at her window watching me. When our eyes met, she turned her face away in shame. Shame. She knew. Everyone knew. And no one had done anything. For a moment, I thought about sitting there on the sidewalk and crying, screaming, shrieking until someone heard me. But I didn't do any of that. Because in that moment, something inside me changed. It wasn't anger yet. It was something colder, more calculated. It was the certainty that I was not going to accept this quietly. I took out my cell phone and called Ryan. It rang, and rang, and rang. Voicemail. I called again. Voicemail. One more time. He had hung up on me. My own son didn't even have the courage to answer. So I called Megan, my daughter-in-law. She answered on the 3rd ring. When I spoke, my voice came out firmer than I expected. "Megan, it's me. Where is my stuff?" She was quiet for a few seconds. Then she let out that high-pitched, fake voice she used when she wanted to sound innocent. "Oh, Eleanor, we just had an emergency with my parents. They really needed a place to stay. And whose house is this, Megan?" Silence. "Megan," I asked, "whose house is this?" "Well, technically it's yours, but..." "There is no but. You threw me out on the street. You changed the lock. You treated me like trash." Her tone changed immediately. The high-pitched voice disappeared. That hard voice I knew well took its place. You are being dramatic. No one threw anyone out on the street. Your things are right there, all organized. You just need to go to a friend's house until we sort this out. Sort it out how, Megan? When were you going to tell me about this? Look, Eleanor, my parents are about to arrive. I can't keep talking right now. We'll talk later. And she hung up on me. I stood there, holding the phone, feeling a mixture of things I can't even explain. Humiliation, sadness, rage, but also a clarity I had never felt before. They thought I had nowhere to go. They thought I was going to stay there begging at the door, asking to come back, that I would accept any scrap they gave me. But they didn't know one thing I had kept secret for 3 years, and that one thing was going to change everything. I took a deep breath. I picked up my suitcase, gathered the bags with my things as best I could, and started walking. Mrs. Davis was still in the window, not even bothering to hide that she was watching me anymore. I let her watch. Soon, she would have a lot more to see. I walked to the bus stop and called an Uber. When the car arrived, the driver looked at the amount of bags and made a strange face, but he helped me put everything in the trunk. I got into the back seat and gave the address. 428, Acacia Street, downtown. The driver looked at me in the rearview mirror, curious. He must have been wondering what a woman my age was doing with so much luggage, going downtown on a Tuesday afternoon. But he didn't ask anything, and I didn't say anything. As the car moved, I looked out the window. The streets of my city passed by, these same streets I had known since I was a child. I thought about everything that had happened, how I had gotten to this point. I was widowed 20 years ago. Arthur, my husband, died in a motorcycle accident on his way home from work. Ryan was only 15 years old. It was hard, very hard. But I didn't have time to grieve. I had to work. I had to keep the house. I had to raise my son. I started making custom cakes and pies to sell. Pound cakes, cheesecakes, birthday cakes, anything. I would wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning to start baking. By 7 o'clock, I was already on the street selling. Then I would come back, clean the house, make food, take care of Ryan. At night, I would prepare everything for the next day. It was years like that, hard years. But I had a goal, to give my son a good life. And I did it. He graduated with a degree in computer science. He got a good job at a tech company. He met Megan. He got married. When he told me he wanted to live with me after getting married, I thought it was a dream come true. I was going to have my son close. I was going to have company. I wasn't going to be alone in that big house. But little by little, I started to realize it wasn't like that. Megan never treated me like a mother-in-law. She treated me like a maid. She left dirty dishes for me to wash, clothes for me to iron. She expected me to make dinner every day. And when I complained, she would turn on her little act, saying I was being too sensitive, that it was just a little help, that that's what family is for. And Ryan? My son said nothing. He stayed quiet, pretending not to see. When I tried to talk to him, he changed the subject. He said I was exaggerating, that Megan didn't mean any harm. Then came the day his mom came to visit. Brenda, a woman full of pretension, one of those who think they are better than everyone. She walked into my house looking at everything with a disgusted face. She sat on the edge of the sofa, as if she was afraid of getting her clothes dirty. And then she dropped the bomb. Eleanor, don't you think this house needs an update? Everything is so dated. The house I built with the sweat of my labor was dated. The house where I raised my son alone was dated. I swallowed hard and didn't answer. But that stuck in my head. It was after that visit that I started to notice the hushed conversations. Megan and Ryan whispering in the kitchen, stopping when I entered. Them looking at papers together and hiding them when they saw me. I knew they were planning something, but I didn't know what. Until one day, about 3 years ago, I overheard a conversation I wasn't supposed to. I was in the yard hanging clothes. The kitchen window was open, and they were inside, thinking I wasn't home. Ryan, this house is in your mom's name. If we ever want to sell, she has to sign. Megan's voice. I know, honey, but how am I going to ask her for that? She'll think I want to get rid of her. And you don't? Look, I love your mom, but living together every day is hard. And this house is worth a lot of money. We could sell it, buy a modern apartment, invest the rest. But where would she live? I don't know. A retirement home, a small apartment. We'd help her with a pension. She'd be fine. My heart almost stopped. I stood there, holding a wet sheet, feeling like the world was caving in. My son was thinking about putting me in a nursing home. My own son. I didn't say anything to them, but that day I made a decision. I went to the bank. I took out all the money I had saved. It was $30,000. $30,000 I had saved from selling desserts for years. Every dollar there represented early mornings awake, hands covered in flour, feet swollen from walking so much selling on the streets. I looked for apartments for sale. I wanted something small, but mine. A place where no one could kick me out. I found a studio condo in an older building downtown. Small, simple, but with everything I needed. The owner needed a quick cash sale. He accepted the $30,000 as a huge down payment, and I paid off the rest in 3 years, directly to him. I signed everything without telling anyone. Not Ryan, not Megan, not my friends. It was my secret, my plan B, my safe place in case things went wrong. And for 3 years, I paid for that apartment religiously. Every month I took from my pension and paid the installment. I cut back here, saved there, but I paid. Even if I had to eat peanut butter sandwiches all month, I paid. Until 2 months ago, I made the last payment. The apartment was mine, completely mine. I took the deed, put it in a safe place, and breathed a sigh of relief. Now I had protection. If one day things got worse, I had somewhere to go. But I never imagined that day would come so soon, and in such a cruel way. The Uber stopped in front of the building. It was an old, 4-story building, a walk-up. My apartment was on the 3rd floor. The driver helped me take the bags up. I gave him a tip and thanked him. When I opened the apartment door, a smell of the place being closed up hit me. I hadn't been here in a month. But still, even though it was small, even though it was simple, it was mine. No one could take me from here. I put the bags on the floor and sat on the old couch I'd bought at a thrift store. I looked around. A small living room with a couch and an old TV, a kitchenette with a 2-burner stove and a small fridge, a bedroom with a twin bed and a closet, a bathroom with a shower and everything clean. It wasn't much, but it was mine. It was only when I closed the door and saw myself alone there that the tears came. I cried. I cried a lot. I cried for the humiliation. I cried for the betrayal. I cried for the pain of realizing that my son, my only son, had treated me like trash. But after I cried everything I had to cry, something changed. I got up, washed my face, and looked at myself in the bathroom mirror. The woman looking back at me had red eyes, messy hair, but she also had something new in her gaze, a hardness, a determination. They thought I would be destroyed, that I would beg to come back, that I would accept anything they offered, but they were wrong. Because I was no longer that Eleanor, who accepted everything quietly. I was a woman who had fought all her life, and if there was one thing I knew how to do, it was fight. I took my cell phone and searched the internet. Family law attorney. Several appeared. I chose one that had good reviews and scheduled a consultation for the next morning. Then I opened the closet where I kept my documents. I took the deed to the house. That house that Ryan and Megan thought was theirs. That house they had taken from me without a second thought. I read the deed carefully. Everything was in my name. Eleanor Vance, sole owner, with no other name. Ryan lived there, but the house was mine. Legally, juridically, completely mine. And if it was mine, I could do whatever I wanted with it. Even sell it. The idea came to me like a lightning bolt. Clear, simple, perfect. If they wanted the house so badly, if they thought they could kick me out and keep everything, they were in for a surprise. Because I was going to sell that house. I was going to sell it and leave them without a roof over their heads. Literally, I spent the night organizing my things. I hung my clothes in the closet. I arranged my shoes. I put my books on a small shelf I had in the living room. Every object I put in its place was a piece of my dignity returning. In the early morning, I received a message from Ryan. "Mom, we need to talk." "I'll stop by tomorrow," I just replied. "Okay." I lay in my bed staring at the ceiling. I heard the noises from the street below. Cars passing, people talking. Life went on as if nothing had happened. But for me, everything had changed. And when Ryan found out what I was planning, his life was going to change too. Because they messed with the wrong person. They messed with a mother who had given her life for her son. But they also messed with a woman who had fought too hard to get here. And that woman was not going to accept being trampled on. I closed my eyes, but I couldn't sleep. My head was boiling with thoughts, plans, strategies. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't thinking about Ryan's well-being. I was thinking about me, about what was best for me, about what I deserved. And what I deserved was respect. I woke up at 6 o'clock in the morning. I didn't even need an alarm. My body was already used to getting up early after so many years of making desserts. I got up, showered, made coffee. I sat at the small kitchen window and watched the city wake up. It was strange to be there. In this apartment, that was my secret for 3 years. Now it was my home, my only home. And despite all the pain, there was something good about it. Here, I was at peace. No one was going to order me around. No one was going to look at me with disgust. No one was going to treat me like a maid. At 9 o'clock in the morning, I was at the lawyer's office. Mr. Wallace, a man in his 50s, received me politely. I told him everything. The note, the things thrown on the lawn, the changed lock. I showed him the deed to the house. He looked at everything carefully. He made some notes. Then he looked me in the eyes and said something that changed everything. Mrs. Vance, you were a victim of illegal eviction. Your son removed you from your property illegally. You can file a lawsuit to regain possession. In a matter of days, the police will remove him from there, and you will return to your home. My heart beat faster. Imagine the scene. The police knocking on the door. Ryan and Megan having to leave. The shame in front of the neighbors. Justice being served. But then I thought better of it. If I did that, I would go back to that house. I would have to live with them again. I would have to put up with Megan's face every day. I would have to pretend that everything was fine. And I didn't want that. I didn't want to live in that environment anymore. Mr. Wallace, what if instead of regaining possession, I wanted to sell the house? He raised his eyebrows. You want to sell? I do. The house is mine. I can sell it, right? Yes, you can. You are the sole owner. You don't need anyone's authorization. And they will have to leave? They will have to leave. When the house is sold, the new owners will demand they vacate. And if they don't leave on their own, they will be removed. I felt a smile forming on my lips. That was it. That was exactly what I wanted. For them to feel the same thing I felt. The same insecurity. The same desperation. The same feeling of having nowhere to go. Then let's do that. I want to sell the house. Mr. Wallace guided me through all the steps. He said I needed to notify them legally about the sale. Give them a deadline to vacate. Then put the house on the market. He even recommended a trusted real estate agent. I left the office feeling lighter. I was finally taking action. I was no longer just reacting. I was acting. I stopped by a stationery store and bought a new notebook. I sat in a corner cafe and started doing the math. How much was my house worth? I searched the internet for similar properties in the same area. The house was worth around $350,000. $350,000. With that money, I could do so many things. I could remodel my apartment, buy new furniture, travel, save a part for emergencies, live peacefully without worrying about anything. But more important than the money was the freedom of not depending on them, the freedom to live my way, the freedom to be respected. The next day, Ryan showed up at my apartment. He rang the bell at 10 o'clock in the morning. When I opened the door, he had that lost puppy look. He came in, looking at everything as if he couldn't believe I had a place to live. Mom, we need to talk. You can talk. He sat on the couch. I sat in the chair opposite him. I let a heavy silence hang in the air. I wanted him to feel uncomfortable. I wanted him to know that things had changed. Look, Mom, I know the situation got weird, but everything happened so fast. Megan's parents lost their house. They were evicted. They had nowhere to go. Megan was desperate, And me? Did I have somewhere to go? He lowered his head. I knew you had this apartment. My blood ran cold. How did you know? I saw some paperwork once, about 2 years ago. I was looking for a document of yours, and ended up seeing the deed. So he knew. He knew I had this place. And still, he threw me out on the street. Since he knew I had somewhere to go, he thought it was okay to humiliate me like that. I see. You knew I wouldn't be on the street, so you thought you could treat me like trash. It's not like that, Mom. I just thought it would be temporary. That in a few months we would sort it out. A few months? And when were you going to tell me? Or were you going to let me find out the way I did? He was silent. He had no answer for that, because there was no justification. What he did was cowardly, and he knew it. Ryan, tell me something. Do you remember when your father died? He looked at me, confused by the change of subject. I remember. Do you remember how we were left? With no money, with nothing. Do you remember what I did? You worked. You made desserts. You worked a lot. I worked until my fingers bled. I woke up in the early morning. I went to sleep in the early morning. All so you could have food on the table, clean clothes, school, all so you could have a better life than mine. And do you remember any time I complained? That I made you feel like you were a burden? He shook his head, his eyes watery. Never. Then explain to me how you had the nerve to do this to me. The tears streamed down his face. I don't know, Mom. I was weak. I let Megan convince me. She said it was the only solution, that you would understand. Understand? Understand that you humiliated me? That you threw my things on the lawn as if I was worthless? I'm sorry, Mom. I messed up. I really messed up. But we can undo it. Megan's in-laws can go somewhere else. You can come back to the house, and there was the offer. Come back home. Back to the place where I wasn't respected. Where I was treated like a maid. Where I had to swallow insults every day. Ryan, I'm not going back to that house. He opened his eyes. What do you mean you're not? I'm not going back. And what's more, I'm going to sell the house. His face went white. Sell? Mom, you can't do that. Yes, I can. The house is mine, and I'm going to sell it. He got up from the couch, agitated. And where are we going to live? Me? Megan? Her parents? I don't know. You'll have to figure it out. The same way I had to figure it out when you threw me out on the street. Mom, are you doing this out of revenge? No, Ryan. It's not revenge. It's dignity. You treated me like I was worthless. Now you're going to feel what it's like not to have a house. You're going to feel the same insecurity I felt. He tried to argue. He said I was being cruel. That family doesn't do that. That I would regret it. But I didn't change my mind. The more he talked, the firmer I became. Because every word he said showed me that he still hadn't understood the gravity of what he did. He thought an apology would fix everything. That I would forgive and forget, like I always did. Like I did all the times he hurt me, disrespected me, treated me badly. But this time was different. This time he had crossed the line. Ryan, you can go. I have things to do. Mom, you're not serious about selling the house. You're hurt. It's normal, but in a few days you'll think about it and... I've already thought about it. The house will be sold. You will receive an official notification in the next few days. With the deadline to vacate. He stood there, looking at me as if he didn't recognize me. And maybe that was it. Maybe he had never really known me. He only knew the Eleanor who sacrificed, who accepted everything, who never complained. He didn't know the Eleanor who fought, the Eleanor who had strength, the Eleanor who knew how to defend herself. He left, slamming the door. I heard his heavy, angry footsteps going down the stairs. Then I heard the sound of the car starting and speeding off. He was angry. Perfect. Let him feel anger. Let him feel at least a fraction of what I felt. A week later, the real estate agent visited the house. A young man named Chris, very professional. I had warned him I would go with him. But when we arrived, Megan was home. Her parents were too. Her face when she saw me was pure shock. When she saw Chris with his clipboard and camera, she turned pale. What is this, Eleanor? I came to get an appraisal of the house. I'm selling it. Sell? You can't sell. We live here. You live in my house without my permission, but that will end soon. Her mother, Brenda, got involved in the conversation. Eleanor, this is absurd. You can't just leave us on the street. I looked at her closely. This pretentious woman who had entered my house and called me dated. Brenda, you left me on the street. Literally. You threw my things on the lawn and changed the lock. Now it's your turn to find out what that feels like. Chris did his job. He measured the rooms, took photos, noted everything. Megan just stared daggers at me the whole time, but she didn't say anything else. She knew she had no argument. When we finished, Chris gave me the good news. Mrs. Vance, this house is in a great location. Close to schools, supermarkets, transportation. It's in good condition. It'll sell fast. I'd say we'll close the deal in a month. 1 month. In 1 month, I would be free of that place. Free of the bad memories. Free of the feeling of being deceived in my own home. On the way back to the apartment, I stopped by my friend Carol's house. She had been my neighbor for 15 years before moving to the other side of the city. She was one of the few people I considered a true friend. When I told her everything that had happened, she was horrified. Eleanor, I can't believe Ryan would do that. That boy you raised with so much love. That's how it is, Carol. We raise our children thinking they'll take care of us when we're old, but sometimes they just want to get rid of us. She made coffee, and we talked all afternoon. It was good to have someone to vent to. Someone who understood me. Who didn't try to make me change my mind or convince me to forgive. You're doing the right thing, Eleanor. You have to teach him a lesson. Otherwise, he'll think he can always do this. I returned to the apartment as night fell. I climbed the 3 flights of stairs slowly. My legs weren't what they used to be, but I made it. I always make it. When I opened the door, I smelled that scent of home. My home. I looked around and thought about how this place had saved me. If I hadn't bought this apartment 3 years ago, what would have become of me now? I would be at some friend's house, feeling like a burden. Or worse, I would be begging Ryan to let me come back. But no, I had my place, my little corner, and very soon, I would have enough money to live with dignity for the rest of my life. 3 days later, Ryan received the official notification. Mr. Wallace had done everything correctly. A nice, stamped document explaining that the owner of the property, me, had decided to sell and that they had 30 days to vacate. He called me, beside himself. Mom, are you serious about this? Are you really going to go through with it? I am. Don't you have a heart? Don't you think about your grandchildren who don't even exist? About the future of the family? Ryan, when you threw my things on the lawn, did you think about me? Did you think about your mother who raised you alone? Who worked until she couldn't anymore so you could have a good life? Silence. That's what I thought. You didn't think. And now you want me to think about you. Megan is getting sick from crying so much. Her parents are desperate. They have nowhere to go. Their problem. They should have thought about that before planning to kick me out of my own house. He hung up on me. I stared at the phone, waiting to feel remorse. But I didn't. I only felt peace. Because for the first time in my life, I was doing what was right for me, not for my son. The days went by. Chris called me almost every day with updates. There were people interested in the house. Several people had gone to visit it. Some had made offers. One Saturday morning, he called me, excited. Mrs. Vance, a couple showed up who loved the house. They want to pay in cash. $360,000. Above the value we had asked for. My heart leaped. $360,000. It was more than I expected. Much more. They can pay in cash? Are you sure? Sure. I've already verified it. The money is in their account. Serious, well-established people. They want to close soon because their daughter is getting married in 3 months, and they want to give her the house as a gift. I got emotional. A family that was going to give that house as a gift to their daughter. Who was going to start a new life there. Who was going to make that place a home full of love. That's how it should be. Then let's close. I accept the offer. Chris was happy. He said he was going to organize everything. That in 2 weeks, everything would be signed. That night I called Ryan. I needed to tell him personally. Despite everything, he was still my son. Ryan, the house has been sold. You have 15 days to get out. On the other end of the line, a long silence. Then, his voice came out softly. So you really did sell it? I did, and for a good price. And us? Where are we going to go? I don't know, Ryan, but you are adults. You work. You have means. You'll have to manage, just like I had to manage when you threw me out on the street. Are you going to live with a clear conscience, knowing you left your own son homeless? I took a deep breath. That question hurt, but I had to answer with the truth. Ryan, my conscience is clear. Because I did everything for you, I gave my all, and you paid me back by throwing me out on the street like trash. So yes, I will sleep soundly. The question is, will you? He hung up without answering. In the following days, I started receiving calls. Distant relatives who hadn't shown any sign of life for years. Aunt Clara, whom I hadn't seen since Arthur's funeral 20 years ago. Cousin Javier, who never visited me when I needed help. Cousin Zulema, who always treated me with contempt for being poor. All with the same speech, that I was being too harsh. That family forgives. That Ryan had made a mistake, but he deserved a second chance. That I would regret it when I was old and needed help. But I saw beyond the words. I saw the self-interest. Because if I sold the house, the money would stay with me. And when I died, where would that money go? To Ryan, my only heir. And all those relatives wanted to make sure the inheritance remained intact. To everyone who called, I said the same thing. When I was humiliated, did you call me? Did you worry about me? Then don't get involved in my life now. Aunt Clara had the audacity to say, Eleanor, you were always so nice. What happened to you? I replied. What happened is I got tired of being nice and being stepped on. I learned that kindness without boundaries just becomes weakness. She hung up, offended. Perfect. Let her be offended. It wouldn't make any difference in my life. A week before signing the contract, Megan showed up at my apartment, alone. She rang the bell on a Sunday morning. When I opened the door, she looked like she had been crying. Swollen eyes, wrinkled clothes. Eleanor, please, we need to talk. I thought about slamming the door in her face. But a part of me was curious. I wanted to hear what she had to say. I let her in. She sat on the couch and started to cry. Eleanor, I know I messed up. I messed up badly, but I'm desperate. We have nowhere to go. My dad has a heart condition, and the stress is hurting him. My mom is having anxiety attacks. Ryan is losing weight. He can't sleep. And this is all my fault. I just looked at her. A part of me felt pity, but the other part, the part that had learned to defend itself, felt nothing. Megan, when you planned to kick me out of my house, did you think about all this? No, I didn't think. I was selfish. I was only thinking about solving my parents' problem. I didn't think about how you would feel. You didn't think because you never saw me as a person. You always saw me as the annoying mother-in-law who lived in the house and got in your way. She cried harder. It's true, I admit it. I always saw you like that. But now I understand how wrong I was. You were always good to us. You always helped, and I treated you badly. And now that everything is lost, you come here asking for help. Eleanor, I'm not asking you not to sell. I know you've already decided. I'm just asking for more time. 30 more days, so we can rent a place. Get the money for the move. I looked at her. This woman who had been the cause of so much pain in my life, who had turned my son against me, who had treated me like a maid, who had kicked me out of my own house. And now she was here, begging. I could have felt satisfaction. I could have taken the opportunity to humiliate her the way she humiliated me. But I didn't. Because I didn't want to be like her. I didn't want to be cruel. I just wanted to be fair. Megan, I'll give you 15 more days, but on one condition. She looked up, hopeful. What? You are going to tell Ryan the whole truth. You're going to tell him that you planned everything, that you convinced him to kick me out, that the idea was yours. She turned pale. If I do that, he'll hate me. If you don't get a single extra day. The choice is yours. She was quiet for a long time. I could see the internal battle happening. Take the blame, or lose everything. Finally, she agreed. Okay, I'll tell him. In front of me, you're going to call him here and tell him in front of me, because I need to be sure you're going to do it. She agreed. We scheduled it for the next day, Monday morning. When she left, I kept thinking, was I doing the right thing? Was I pushing too hard? But then, I remembered my things thrown on the lawn, the cruel note, the changed lock, and I knew I was doing exactly what needed to be done. On Monday morning, Ryan and Megan arrived together. He looked like he hadn't slept in days. She was nervous, wringing her hands the whole time. We sat in the living room. I made coffee. I served them. Then I looked at Megan and said, "You can start." She took a deep breath, looked at Ryan, and started talking. "Ryan, I need to tell you something about what happened with your mom. The truth is, it was all my idea. I planned it. I convinced you. I waited for her to travel to put the plan into action." Ryan's face changed as she spoke, from confusion to surprise. From surprise to anger. From anger to disappointment. You planned all of it? It was me. I was desperate because my parents had nowhere to live. And I thought your mom would understand, that she had the apartment. So it wouldn't be a problem. Megan, I asked you 1,000 times if there was another way. You said there wasn't. You said it was the only solution. I know. I lied. I could have rented a house for my parents. I could have helped them in another way. But I wanted the easiest solution, and I ended up destroying everything. Ryan stood up from the couch. He was trembling. You lied to me. You made me kick my own mother out of her house. You made me be the worst son in the world. All because of your lie. Ryan, no. Don't come with excuses now. You destroyed my family. You destroyed my relationship with my mom. And for what? To please your parents? He looked at me. His eyes were full of tears. Mom, I'm so sorry. I'm truly sorry. I was an idiot. I let her manipulate me. I let her convince me to do the worst thing of my life. I just looked at my son, this 35-year-old man who looked like a lost child. I felt like hugging him, telling him everything was fine. But everything was not fine. And hugging him now would be coddling him. It would be teaching him that he could hurt me and then be easily forgiven. Ryan, I appreciate the apology, but it doesn't change anything. The house will be sold. You have 15 more days to leave. That's the most I can do. He nodded, defeated. They left the apartment without saying another word. I heard their footsteps going down the stairs. I heard the argument starting before they even got in the car. Ryan's voice was loud, irritated. Megan's was tearful, defensive. I closed the door and leaned against it. I took a deep breath. I felt a weight in my chest. Because despite everything, despite the pain, despite the anger, he was still my son, and seeing him suffer hurt me. But I had learned one thing in these last few months. Love doesn't mean accepting anything. A mother's love doesn't mean being a doormat. I could love my son and still maintain my boundaries. I could forgive him one day, but not now, not without him learning the lesson. The 15 days passed quickly. On the day of the contract signing, I woke up with a heavy heart. It was the end of a cycle. That house had been my whole life. There I was a wife. There I was a mother. There I was happy, before everything fell apart. But it was also there that I was disrespected. There I felt useless. There I learned that sometimes the people we love the most are the ones who hurt us the most. Mr. Wallace picked me up in his car. We went to the title company's office. The buying couple was already there. A man in his 40s and a woman of the same age, nice, smiling. They greeted me politely. "Mrs. Vance, a pleasure to meet you. We are Robert and Sylvia. We loved your house. It's going to be perfect for our daughter to start her life." I smiled. "That's wonderful. I hope you'll be very happy there." The notary public began to read the contract. He explained each clause. I signed where I had to sign. They signed. And that was it. The house was no longer mine. Robert handed me an envelope. "The money has already been transferred to your account, Mrs. Vance. But we also wanted to give you this." I opened the envelope. Inside was a handmade card with colored drawings. "Thank you for giving us the perfect house. With love, Anna." Anna was their daughter, the young woman who was getting married. Who was going to live in the house I built with so much effort? I felt my eyes fill with tears. Thank you. Take good care of it. We will. Don't you worry. I left the title company feeling strange, light and heavy at the same time, free and lost at the same time. It was as if I had closed a book I had been reading for 40 years. The story was over. And now what? Mr. Wallace drove me back to the apartment. On the way, he told me, "Mrs. Vance, you did the right thing. I know it wasn't easy, but it was the right thing." I know, Mr. Wallace. I know. I got home and sat on the couch. I took my cell phone and opened the bank app. I refreshed the screen, and there it was. $360,000 in my account. It was more money than I had ever seen in my entire life. More money than I ever dreamed of having. With that money, I could do so many things. I called Carol. "Friend, the house is sold. The money is in my account." She screamed on the other end. "Eleanor, congratulations, you did it. I did it. And now I don't know what to do." "What do you mean you don't know? You're going to live your life. You're going to do everything you always wanted to and never could." She was right. For so many years, I lived for everyone but myself. I worked to support my son. I sacrificed to give him a good life. I swallowed insults to keep the peace in the family. And in the end, it was all for nothing. Now it was my turn. My turn to do what I wanted, to spend on what made me happy, to live the way I chose. In the following days, I started making plans. First, I paid off the small debts I had. A credit card here, an overdue bill there. I cleared my record. I got current with everything. Then I set aside a part of the money to invest. Mr. Wallace recommended a bank manager who explained about safe investments, about retirement savings instruments. I invested $200,000. The return would give me extra income every month in addition to my pension. I was going to live comfortably for the rest of my life. With the $110,000 that was left, I decided to do what I always dreamed of. First, remodel my apartment. I called a contractor. I painted the walls. I changed the kitchen floor. I bought new furniture, a comfortable couch, a good bed with an orthopedic mattress, a big TV. I left everything just as I always wanted. When I finished, my apartment was unrecognizable. It no longer looked like that small, simple place. It looked like a home. My home. Then I fulfilled an old dream. I bought a plane ticket. I was going to see the Florida Keys. I always wanted to see the beaches there. Key West, Miami. I was going to spend a month traveling, seeing new places, living. Carol went crazy when I told her. "Eleanor? All by yourself? Aren't you scared?" "Scared of what? I'm 64, not 90. I'm lucid, healthy, with money in my pocket. I'm going to enjoy it while I can." 2 days before traveling, Ryan called me. It was the first time we had spoken since the house was signed. "Mom, we've already moved. We rented a small house. Everything is fine." "That's good, Ryan. I'm glad you were able to get organized." "Mom, I wanted to ask you something. I wanted to see you before you travel. Carol told me you're going to the Keys." I was surprised he knew. But Carol was his friend too. She had known him since he was a child. She must have mentioned it without thinking. "You can come tomorrow morning." The next day, he arrived alone. He looked at the remodeled apartment in surprise. "Mom, it looks beautiful here." "Thank you. Now it's just how I always wanted it." We sat down to talk. He seemed different. Thinner, more serious, more mature. "Mom, I broke up with Megan." That took me by surprise. "You broke up?" "I broke up. After I found out it was all her idea, that she manipulated me. I couldn't look at her the same way. The trust was gone, and without trust, there's no marriage." I stayed quiet. I didn't know what to say. A part of me was glad. Another part was worried. Because despite everything, they had built a life together. "And how are you?" "I'm not good, Mom. I lost my wife. I lost my house. I lost your trust. I'm living in a rented place, paying support to my in-laws because I feel guilty. Everything is wrong." I looked at my son, this broken man in front of me, and for the first time in months, I felt my heart soften. "Ryan, You made a mistake. A big mistake. You hurt me in a way I never imagined you were capable of hurting. But you were also deceived. You were manipulated. That doesn't absolve you of the blame, but it explains some things." He looked up at me. "Do you think you'll ever be able to forgive me?" I took a deep breath. "I don't know, Ryan. Forgiveness isn't something that happens overnight. It's a process. And I'm still processing everything. I'm still healing my wounds. But I can tell you one thing. I still love you. You are still my son, and nothing is going to change that." He started to cry. He cried like I hadn't seen him cry since he was a child. And this time, I let him. I let him cry. I let him get out all the pain, all the guilt, all the regret. When he calmed down, I told him, "Ryan, you're going to be okay. You're going to learn from this. You're going to grow. And one day, when you find someone new, you'll remember this story and you'll treat that person better. And us, Mom? Will we have a relationship again? Yes, but it will be different. I will no longer be that mother who accepts everything, who sacrifices for everything. I will be a mother who loves you, but who also loves herself, who respects you, but who also demands respect." He nodded. "I understand. And I accept that. Any way I can, I accept it. I just want to have you in my life again." When he left, I felt lighter. It wasn't complete forgiveness yet, but it was a start, a first step to rebuilding what had been broken. The next day, I embarked for the Florida Keys. Carol took me to the airport. "Enjoy it, friend. You deserve it." The plane took off and I stared out the window. I watched Phoenix get smaller down below. I watched my old life fade away. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel fear. I felt excitement. I spent a month traveling. I saw Key West, with those beautiful beaches. Miami, with its giant dunes. The Everglades, with the history and culture. In each place, I was just Eleanor. I wasn't anyone's mother. I wasn't anyone's widow. I was just me. I made friends. I met other women traveling alone. Linda, 70 years old, who was traveling all over the United States. Marlene, 68, who had sold everything and decided to live in different rental cities every 6 months. They told me stories similar to mine. Children who had disrespected them, families who had treated them badly, and how they had decided to live for themselves. "Eleanor," Linda said, "one night in Key West, we spend our whole lives believing we have to sacrifice for others. But no one gives you a medal for it. In the end, you get old, tired, and still. They treat you like a burden. So it's better to live for yourself while you can." Those words resonated in my head. That was exactly it. I had sacrificed my whole life, and in the end, I had been discarded. But not anymore. Now I was living for me. I returned from the trip renewed, tanned, rested, happy. I arrived at the apartment and felt like I was truly coming home. It was no longer a temporary refuge. It was my permanent home. In the following months, I created a new routine. I woke up without an alarm. I had breakfast calmly. I watched TV, read books, went for walks. I visited Carol, went to the church's senior group, participated in activities. I signed up for a craft class. I learned to knit, embroider, all I had learned. And in return, I received their gratitude, friendship, affection. Ryan visited me once a month, always on Sunday morning. He respected my space. He didn't show up unannounced. He didn't demand my attention. He was learning to respect me. During the visits, we talked. He told me about his life, about work, about his plans. I told him about my trips, my new hobbies, my friends. It was different, but it was good. One day he told me, "Mom, I learned one thing from all this. I learned that you are an incredible, strong, brave, independent person." And I spent my whole life not seeing it. I only saw the mother who took care of me. I didn't see the woman behind the mother. Those words moved me because that was exactly it. I had spent so much time being just the mother that I had forgotten to be Eleanor, the woman Eleanor, the person Eleanor. Ryan, it's never too late to learn. And you learned. That's already a lot. 6 months after the sale of the house, I received an unexpected call. It was Megan. Eleanor, I know you don't want to talk to me, but I needed to call you. I needed to apologize for real. Not that apology I gave when I was desperate, but a sincere, heartfelt apology. I stayed quiet, waiting for her to continue. I was a terrible person to you. I treated you badly. I disrespected you. I kicked you out of your own house. And all because I was selfish. Because I thought the world revolved around me and my problems. But now, after everything that happened, after losing everything, I understand. I understand how much I messed up, how much you didn't deserve any of it. Megan, I appreciate the apology, but you know this doesn't change anything, right? I know. I'm not asking for forgiveness, hoping it will change anything. I'm asking because I need to, because I can't live in peace knowing what I did. I took a deep breath. This woman who had been the cause of so much pain in my life was on the other end of the line, broken, repentant. And I didn't feel anger. I didn't feel revenge. I felt pity. Megan, I can't say I forgive you now, but I can say that I don't hold a grudge. Life has already taught you the lesson you needed. I don't need to do anything else. Thank you, Eleanor, for everything, even for teaching me this lesson. She hung up and I stood there, looking at the phone, thinking about how life turns. Megan had it all, a marriage, a house, a comfortable life, and she threw it all away for greed and selfishness. Now she was rebuilding her life from scratch, and I, who had been discarded like trash, was living better than ever. The irony of life. On my 65th birthday, I threw a party in the apartment. I invited my friends from the church group, Carol, Linda, who had returned from her trip and was in the city, other friends I made in the craft class. I filled my house with people who genuinely cared about me. Ryan showed up with a gift, a digital frame with old photos, photos of when he was a child, of when his father was alive, of happy moments we had lived together. I was moved, because that showed that he remembered, that he valued our history, despite everything. Mom, I know I ruined a lot of things, but I want you to know that I cherish the good memories, and I want to create new memories. Good memories, if you give me that chance. I hugged my son, and in that hug, I felt that I had forgiven him. I hadn't forgotten, I would never forget, but I had forgiven him. Ryan, we are going to create new memories, but it will be different. It will be based on mutual respect, on healthy boundaries, on true love, not on obligation. I accept. Mom, any way you want. The party was beautiful. We laughed, we talked, we ate cake. My apartment was full of life, of joy, of true love, and I looked around and thought, this is it, this is happiness. It's not having a big house, it's not having family who uses you. It's having people who value you, it's having your independence, it's having your dignity. In the following months, my life settled in even more. I started giving craft classes to a group of ladies in the neighborhood. I taught knitting, embroidery, everything I had learned. And in return, I received their gratitude, friendship, affection. One of the students, Mrs. Cecilia, told me she was going through a situation similar to mine. Her daughter wanted to put her in a retirement home to take her apartment. Eleanor, I don't know what to do. It's my daughter. I don't want to fight with her. I took her hands. Mrs. Cecilia, defending yourself isn't fighting. It's respecting yourself. You have the right to live your life the way you want. Don't let anyone take that away from you. I helped her find a lawyer, explained her rights, and I watched her, a 70-year-old lady, take charge of her own life. It was gratifying. I realized that my story could help other people. So, I started talking more openly about what had happened to me. In the church group, in the craft meetings, with friends, and I discovered that it was more common than I imagined. So many people being disrespected by their own family, so many women being treated as a burden, as a nuisance, so many stories similar to mine. And all of them needed to hear that it wasn't normal, that it wasn't right, that they deserved respect. I decided to write my story. I bought a beautiful notebook and started writing everything. From the day I came back from my trip and found my things on the lawn until now. I wrote about the pain, about overcoming, about the freedom I found. Carol read it and said, "Eleanor, you have to publish this. There are so many people who need to read it. So many people who need to know that it's possible to start over." At first, I thought it was an exaggeration. Who would want to read the story of a 65-year-old lady? But then I thought, if my story helps at least one person to defend themselves, it will have been worth it. I looked for a small publisher in the city. I showed them my text, and to my surprise, they liked it. They said it was an important story, that it needed to be told. 6 months later, my book was published, The House My Son Stole From Me, a story of overcoming. It didn't become a bestseller. It didn't make me rich, but it reached those who needed it. I received letters, emails, messages from women thanking me, saying they had been inspired by my story to take action in their lives, that they had learned to defend themselves, that they had discovered it's never too late to start over. A 72-year-old lady wrote to me, "Eleanor, I read your book and I cried. I cried because it's my story too. And I cried because I realized that I don't need to accept my son's mistreatment. Thank you for showing me that I have a choice." Those words were worth more than any money. Ryan read the book. He was silent for days, until he called me. "Mom, I read it. I read everything. And it was hard, seeing everything in writing, seeing the pain I caused. But I needed to see it. I needed to truly understand what I did to you. Ryan, I didn't write it to hurt you. I wrote it to help other people. But I also wrote it so you would understand. So you would never do this to anyone again. I understand, Mom, and I promise, never again." A year after the sale of the house, I took another trip, this time south. I visited New Orleans, Savannah. I went alone again, and again I felt free, light, happy. At a guest house in New Orleans, I met Walter, a 68-year-old man, a widower who was also traveling alone. We started talking at breakfast. We discovered we had a lot in common. He had also been through a difficult situation with his children. He had also decided to live for himself. He had also discovered freedom after 60. "Eleanor, the best thing I did was stop expecting my children to pay attention to me. When I stopped expecting, I stopped suffering. And that's when they started to value me more." We spent the whole week talking, walking together, laughing. And when I returned to Phoenix, we continued talking on the phone. It wasn't romance. At least, not yet. But it was a nice friendship, companionship, someone who understood what I had been through because he had been through something similar. Carol was thrilled. "Eleanor, did you get yourself a boyfriend?" "Calm down, woman, he's just a friend." Friend, I know. Then he becomes a boyfriend, then he becomes a husband." I laughed. I had no plans to get married again, but having Walter's company was good. We talked every day. Every now and then he would come to visit me. Or I would go visit him in Atlanta. It was light, without commitment, without pressure. And it was exactly what I needed. 2 years after that terrible day on the lawn, my life was completely different. I had money in the bank. I had a beautiful apartment. I had true friends. I had hobbies. I had traveled to places I always dreamed of seeing. I had published a book. I had found purpose in helping other women defend themselves. And, most importantly, I had my dignity back. Ryan continued to visit me. Our relationship had improved a lot. He had matured, learned. He was dating a new young woman, Patricia, who was completely different from Megan. Nice, polite, respectful. When he introduced her to me, I watched her, waiting to see signs of phoniness. But I didn't see any. Patricia was genuine. She treated Ryan well, and she treated me with respect. "Mrs. Vance, Ryan told me everything that happened, and I just want you to know that I would never be capable of doing something like that. I value family. I value respect." I liked her, but I remained attentive, because I had learned. I had learned that not everyone is what they seem, that it takes time to truly know people. On the 3rd anniversary of the sale of the house, I organized a special lunch. I invited Ryan, Patricia, Carol, Linda, some friends from the group. I prepared a tasty meal. I set a nice table. During lunch, Ryan asked to speak. He stood up, a little nervous, and began to talk. "Everyone, I wanted to thank you all for being here, and especially to thank my mom. Mom, 3 years ago, I made the biggest mistake of my life. 3 years ago, I hurt you in a way I never should have. But in these 3 years, you taught me more than you taught me in my entire life. You taught me about dignity, about respect, about strength. You showed me that it's never too late to start over, that we always have a choice. And I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful for the choice, even though it was painful, because it transformed me into a better man. He was crying. I was crying. Half the table was crying. And I want to ask you for one thing. I want your blessing, because I'm going to ask Patricia to marry me, and I won't do it without your approval, because I learned that family is respected, family is valued, and you are my family. I looked at my son, this man who had hurt me so much, but who had learned, who had grown, who had become someone better. Ryan, you have my blessing, and more than that, you have my pride, because you made a mistake, but you had the courage to admit it. You had the humility to learn, and that's worth more than anything. He hugged me, and in that hug, I felt that we had finally healed the wounds. I wasn't going to forget what happened, but I had forgiven. I had moved on. In the following months, I helped Ryan plan the wedding, but in a different way. I didn't sacrifice myself financially as I had in his first marriage. I contributed what I could, what I wanted, but without straining myself, and Patricia made sure to include me in everything, in the choices, in the decisions, in the preparations. She treated me like a real mother-in-law, not like a maid. The wedding was beautiful, simple, but beautiful. And when Ryan and Patricia exchanged rings, I felt a peace in my heart. I felt that my son had finally found a true partner, someone who would walk with him, not against him. At the party, Walter was present. He had come from Atlanta, especially for the wedding. We danced, we talked, we laughed. And in that moment, looking around, seeing my son happy, seeing my friends, seeing the life I had built, I understood one thing. That cruel note on the lawn hadn't been the end of my story. It had been the beginning of a life I had never imagined I could have. A free life, a dignified life, a life of my own. Today, at 67 years old, I look back and see everything I went through. I see the pain, the humiliation, the betrayal, but I also see the overcoming, the strength, the freedom. If someone asked me if I would do it all again, I would say yes, because it was that pain that showed me who I really was. It was that humiliation that taught me to defend myself. It was that betrayal that freed me from a life that wasn't doing me any good. My apartment is still my refuge, my safe place, where I wake up every day and think, this is mine. No one can take it from me. No one can kick me out. No one can make me feel like I'm in the way. I keep traveling. I've already seen half of the country. I still want to see the other half. I still want to go abroad. I still have so many dreams. I keep teaching craft classes. I keep helping women who go through situations similar to mine. I keep writing. I'm already on the second book, telling more stories of overcoming. Ryan and Patricia live in a small house they rent. They work, they strive, they build their life. And I help when I can and when I want. But I don't sacrifice myself. I don't erase myself. I don't stop living my life for theirs. Our relationship is healthy now, based on mutual respect. I visit them, they visit me. We have lunch together every Sunday. We talk, we laugh, we share life, but each one in their own space, each one with their independence. Patricia told me the other day, Eleanor, I admire you so much. The strength you have, the courage to have started over. I want to be like that when I'm older. That filled me with pride, because that was what I wanted to leave as a legacy. Not a house, not money, but an example. The example that it's never too late to fight for yourself. That dignity is non-negotiable. That respect is not optional. Walter and I continue our friendship. We've been officially dating for a year now, but with no rush to get married, no rush to live together. Each in their own house, visiting each other, traveling together, enjoying each other's company. He told me the other day, Eleanor, we're past the age of living to please others. Now we live the way that makes us happy. And that's exactly what I do. I live the way that makes me happy. Sometimes I wonder about Megan. What is she doing? How is her life? But I don't have enough curiosity to find out. That chapter of my life is closed. I also think about her in-laws, about Brenda and her husband. Those people who took over my house, do they regret it? Did they learn anything? I don't know. And it doesn't matter. What matters is that I learned. I learned that kindness without boundaries becomes weakness. I learned that self-love is fundamental. I learned that family who doesn't respect you doesn't deserve your sacrifice. I learned that starting over has no age. And I learned that sometimes the worst things that happen in our lives are the push we needed to change, to grow, to transform into someone better. If that day on the lawn hadn't happened, I would still be in that house. I would still be feeling invisible. I would still be accepting disrespect. I would still be living a life that wasn't mine. But it happened. And it changed everything. And today, I am grateful for it. I am grateful for the pain that strengthened me, for the humiliation that taught me to defend myself, for the betrayal that freed me. My message to you who are listening is simple. Never accept being treated as less than you are. It doesn't matter who the person is. It doesn't matter if it's your son, your daughter, your spouse, your relative. No one has the right to disrespect you. And if you are going through something similar, know this. You have a choice. You always have a choice. It might be a difficult choice. It might be a painful choice. But it is a choice. You can continue to accept the mistreatment, or you can defend yourself. You can fight for your dignity. You can start over. And it is never, ever too late to start over. I started at 64 years old. You can start at any age. The important thing is to start. Today, when I wake up in the morning and look out the window of my apartment, seeing the city below, I feel peace. I feel gratitude. I feel pride in who I have become. I am no longer that Eleanor who accepted everything quietly. I am the Eleanor who fights, who defends herself, who respects herself, who lives life on her own terms. And if I had to summarize everything I've learned in these last few years in a single sentence, it would be this. Your dignity is worth more than any relationship. It's worth more than any house. It's worth more than anything. Take care of your dignity, because when you lose everything, but you keep your dignity, you still have everything that matters. My name is Eleanor Vance. I am 67 years old, and this is my story of overcoming. The story of how a cruel note on the lawn transformed into the best gift I could have ever received, the gift of freedom. May my story inspire you too to seek your freedom, your dignity, your peace, because you deserve it. We all deserve it, and it is never, ever too late to start over. Now, if you liked this story, click subscribe. And tell me in the comments, what part left you speechless? Oh, and don't forget to become a member to get access to exclusive videos that I don't upload here. I'll be waiting for you there.